So, the moment you all are waiting for, our expert panel on going brick and mortar and what that entails. So I will invite these guys up. If you're speaking, you know who you are. Start making your way up front here. So we have Chris Haedrich, who is a commercial real estate broker who specifically does, join me, who specifically does commercial real estate. We have Peter Bird from the city of Shasta Lake, and he is their city planner. And we have Dylan and Paige here from Friday's Vintage Co. Yeah, amazing. This is a pretty darn good looking group. Yeah, we'll give you guys the clapping beforehand. Warm them up. There we go. So I have a series of questions that we're going to go over. With this also you guys had all gotten your specific questions, but if there's something you want to add specifically to another question that's asked, by all means, jump right in and you can add your insight to that as well, because you guys are all a wealth of information. So let's see, where shall we start? Dylan and Paige, let's start off with you. You're all the way over there. So how about, exactly, right? Well, here, we'll start passing the microphone over that way. So, guys, tell us why you decided to take Friday's Vintage Co. into a brick and mortar. You had been doing it online for a number of years and had been doing pop-ups and stuff like that, but what made you want to take the plunge to go brick and mortar?
Sure. Well, we were online. By online, I mean we ran everything through Instagram mainly, and then we did local pop-ups, like you said, for about 3 years? 3.5 years. But we did a lot of local pop-ups, so we had a lot of local customers that were shopping from us online as well. So that was like the first telltale sign, I think, that we were like, wow, 70% of our customers online, I would say, were local in Reading. So we were like, maybe this is a thing that could work out and actually do well. But also at the pop-ups, people were asking, if we would ever have a store. But I think mainly our hearts were to be in person. We really wanted a store and like being able to interact with people and just, have that face-to-face interaction with customers. So I think ultimately it was our hearts that really wanted that. So we were just comparing details and like logistics of like if we could actually do it. And do you want to add anything to that?
Yep. So then since Dylan, here, you can answer this one then. So what would you say that like the biggest challenge was that you faced when you were preparing to open an actual physical store? And then like how did you overcome that? Like what was maybe the primary 1, 2, 3 challenges there?
I think the biggest challenge is fear, right? Like for me, like anytime you create a business, it's a part of you. Like you're kind of putting that out in the open for people to see. And I mean, fear of rejection, fear of failure, all these things come to mind. So I think for us, like there was years, 2020, right before COVID hit, we were looking for shops. We had been looking forever. And actually this building was, you guys, Katie, were one of those people that just kind of put that fire under our butts. Like I would wake up at 7 a.m. to a message from Katie saying, hey, how's the shop hunt going? Have you guys locked in any shops? Are you looking at anything? So, I think for me, the biggest, and I think I can speak for Paige too, the biggest thing was fear. Like we don't come from business past. We're entrepreneurial, but we never moved past that like baby phase of like we made a little bit of money here, yay, made a little bit of money there, yay. But this was something that we were like, I really feel like this could go the distance. So moving past that, I think it's just a risk. You step out and you just keep going one step at a time. I think for me it was like, again, we didn't know what we were doing, so we're pulling on people around us. I'm calling different business owners that I know in my life. I'm grabbing people, all around us to be like, hey, what do we do next? And that was a huge help, having Katie and Eric and a bunch of people just to lean on. So
that's awesome. So Chris, we'll kind of transition to you over here. So with what they were saying with like, we were looking for spots, we finally found a spot. What would you say, or like your experience has been with like the top factors to consider when you're looking for a commercial property?
So when we're looking at the different spaces and helping different businesses, we get into the numbers for the most part. So when you're looking at the different spots, there's probably 5 or 6 different answers, probably a myriad of different things that people are thinking about when they're putting their perfect ideal business location together. But I think they all come back to one. So I'll give you a couple of examples, but you might be thinking like, how does it feel, right? Because maybe you're maybe you're a retail store and you're, doing rafting and you want it to feel like you're going to come in and go on an adventure. Maybe you're a professional office and you just want your employees to come and be the best versions of themselves and be excited to be productive. Maybe you want a high exposure location where people are going to drive by, they're going to see you and they're going to say, next time I need to buy a car, I'm going to go there. So there's a number of those things, but it all comes back to really kind of the boring side, which is gross sales. Right? So everything is kind of like, well, I want them to be as productive as possible and as happy as possible and have as good mental health as possible, because that means they're more productive, right? And we're more productive as a team. We're happier as a team. Ideally, we all kind of want that to occur when we're doing our startups. We want to, identify our key performance indicators. We want to hit those goals, and we want to find the best location to do that. So there's a number of ways to do that, whether it be demographics in a certain area around what you're looking for, or it's the right floor plan, or it's the best or daytime traffic, as far as the quantity of people that are around the given space at the given time. So that's kind of what we're looking for when we're looking at like what is the best place for some of these businesses. So. Yeah.
And you guys have great traffic by yours. No, you keep a hold of that. Okay. So when it comes to the actual like leasing agreement, like the paperwork side of things, like is there any particular elements of a commercial like lease agreement that like businesses really need to either understand or know? So like on the actual paperwork side, like I know, so Rebecca, our new CEO at the Shasta EDC, she used to be commercial real estate in Indiana and was telling me that some deals it's like, oh well, you like this is your rental rate, but then you also owe us like 10% of your like earnings on top of that. And I was like, what? That's a rule? Like blew my mind. So are there any kind of like hidden things agreement wise? And I know that can change per person, but
sure.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be anything that's hidden. And in especially in leases, the goal, and this is for all parties, landlords and tenants, there should always be, everything should be very transparent, because the goal is to create a relationship that's going to be successful and going to be very long lasting. So if either party is overrepresented or took advantage of the other party, then you're really setting up the whole thing for failure, right? So there shouldn't be anything hidden. But with that said, these leases get so long, they are so verbose, and the legalese is difficult to read on any given day. And so when you're looking through, obviously the given is make sure you know what you're responsible for and what the landlord's responsible for, which is what you're discussing. I would say the biggest one oftentimes ends up being HVAC units, as an example.
Oh, this sounds like a painful topic over there.
Yeah. See, so there's the what you're referring to is either it's like a triple net style lease, or where the tenant pays their proportional share of operating expenses, which includes the property insurance, the property taxes, and then the general expenses to run everything. But what often will happen is the landlord might say, "Oh yeah, come on in. The space is yours. I'm not even going to do anything," and you just go, "Yeah, we're excited." And then you realize that you're starting year 1 and the HVAC unit is on year 20, and it breaks down, and you look back and like, oh my gosh, I have to replace this thing, and it's $20,000. Like I wasn't expecting that. So that has occurred. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, but you just have to make sure that you're aware of that. And there's the best way to do it is just to do it all in writing. Do it all in writing up front. And again, in my experience, no one is intentionally trying to take advantage of anybody else, because it really doesn't benefit anybody if it doesn't come together and everybody's not set up for success. But that's what you're looking for, is some of those factors, and there's ways to protect yourself.
Totally. So. We'll give it over to Peter here. So Peter's from Shasta Lake, so he's speaking from Shasta Lake. So I'm not sure how similar things are, say, Shasta Lake to Redding, because each city can be a little bit different. But from your experience here, can you discuss any like specific either like zoning things that you need to know, or any specific like compliance, either issues or things that you have to get right when, say, you're going into, let's say, the city of Shasta Lake for your case there? So
yeah, absolutely. And I think it would apply to most jurisdictions that you would go to. And always the best thing to do, walk into the Development Services Department, talk to them, say, hey, I've got an idea about this. Do you have any ideas? That's like your number one step to find out where you can do it, what the permitting process might be, how much it's going to cost you to get through your permitting, how much time it's going to take, what are the physical requirements of improvements for the site. I have two different examples. One, we had an online glitter sales come in, and boy, I had no idea there was so much demand for glitter. But and he had names for all of his glitters, and like one was a favorite, and like he had a few extras, so we'd put it on eBay and it'd go for some ridiculous, like $100 for a there bottle.
What?
The guy was doing fantastic business, but he needed more space, right?
Yeah.
He couldn't work out of his house. And, there was a building that was open. He didn't need much parking or anything because the majority was still going to be online sales. But the zoning says, hey, you got to have retail. Somebody's got to be able to walk in because, hey, this is our downtown little strip area. People walking on the sidewalk, they're going to want to come in and get your glitter.
Yeah,
So
obviously.
So also be able to be a little flexible with your model. If there's a place that you're like, hey, that's going to work and that's going to be it, and I might have to modify slightly what I'm doing, you may need to be a little bit flexible. And he did. He opened up and he had some hours of operation where people could walk in. So super minor, low barriers for this space, as opposed to another one that came in and they had this great idea for a 9,000 square foot building, and it was going to be commercial cannabis, and there was going to be a mechanics shop, and it's like, hey, this is feasible here.
Is that to help like the mechanic bill go down a little easier?
Maybe. But it wasn't as straightforward. It wasn't permitted by right. So if you go to a land use table, you're going to see how do I get there? Some's going to be permitted. You just walk in and you can do it. And others take discretionary approvals. You might have to go to the Planning Commission for approvals. Well, they needed to go to the Planning Commission. And through that whole process, they had to install curb, gutter, and sidewalk. They needed to improve their parking lot. On top of that, they got into a building, a 9,000 square foot building that needed a new roof. And you're going to do cannabis, so you need a new transformer, and you need to underground it under the road. And pretty soon it's not 10,000, it's 80,000 and 100,000. So, yes, there's pitfalls.
Yeah.
But it all starts with a trip to the counter and listen to the professionals that know their city. They'll get you pointed in the right direction.
So it sounds like we should be going to people like you before we even really start going down.
Do yourself a favor,
the lane.
don't sign a lease till you talk to the city.
Yeah, that's, you take anything away from this, maybe it's that right there. That is great.
Yeah.
So when it comes, Peter, to the typical like permitting process for say like a new retail location, is there any way to like streamline that approval?
Well,
or
the biggest time suck for any approval is usually not at the city of Shasta Lake. I won't speak for everybody else. The biggest time sink is when you come in with a incomplete application, right? So say it's a commercial building and you're going to, need a site plan, and I'm talking along the lines of a discretionary approval. When it's permitted by right, you can just come in and say, hey, I need a business license, and we go, great.
Can you describe what permitted by right means?
Right. So the zoning code dictates what you can do, where you can do, and how you can do, and you try to measure out the review requirements by the intensity of the use. So, say in our downtown area, we say that, mixed use is great. We want to have, retail and visitor serving things. And, so you come in and you say, well, I want to do a bookstore with an apartment in the back. And we say, hey, great, go do it. I want to come in and I want to have some light manufacturing, like artisan craft trades, and I'm going to build tables, and it's going to be open to the public. Okay, well, that's got noise, it's got dust, it could be slightly irritating to your neighbors. So we're going to go with a use permit, and we're going to go to the Planning Commission, we're going to do a public hearing so all your neighbors know about it, and we're going to go that route. So in zoning, you'll see those different permitting thresholds, and so the biggest mistake I see with folks is they get an idea, they get a location, and they decide to move forward with a use permit, but then they only give part of the information that's needed. And so I'll go through the list and I'll send it out to my departments for review. I'll send it to the fire district for review. Everybody that's affected gets to look at it. And then we're going to send you a letter back that says, hey, you haven't included these 5 or 6 things. And so you're going to take it back to your design professional. They're going to take 3 months to work on it some more. They're going to send it back in, and we're going to look at it again. And if it's not complete at that time, we send it back again. So complete applications, fill out the checklist, do all the stuff, and it'll streamline it. And just an FYI, like a discretionary permit can take anywhere from 3 months to 6 months or longer if it gets hung up in those types of things.
Sure. So dot all of your I's, cross all of your T's, check your boxes, and your life will be less painful. There
Or
you go,
find something
right?
that's permitted by right.
Yes, maybe that. Do that first, and then That's awesome. So going to Dylan and Paige here, one, like you had said there at the beginning, that your heart was to really have brick and mortar, to interact with people in person, and really both what Chris and Peter have said here as well. That's like you have to be like flexible with like your business plan, and like that's an ever flexible kind of changing thing to an extent. So from going online to now brick and mortar, how would you say like your interaction has changed with your customers, and like how has there been any like operations in your business that have changed that you maybe didn't expect because you're now in person?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say everything, right?
Yeah.
Online is very, it's not very consumer friendly. I mean, it is. We do our best to try to, message people, make sure they're happy, but as far as, now being in person, the best part is like we get to, like Paige and I, like one of the things we love to do is build community. There's a lot of different business models out there that do it well. One of those being Dutch Bros does a really good job they have horrible coffee. I'm sorry if you love Dutch Bros. Coffee is garbage.
I'm not gonna, yeah.
But you keep coming back because they develop a good community. They've got people that seem like they love their job, and they know who you are, and they know your order.
And the stickers. Don't
and
forget the stickers.
There you go.
Love
the stickers
those.
and your birthday drink and, the rewards and all these things. And they develop a really consumer-friendly environment. For us, that's something that we always wanted. You can only go so far online with that. You can do that, but not to the extent of developing a community, having people will buy the product. There's always going to be people to buy a product, but when people buy into you, they're actually investing there, like they want to see you succeed. So for us, I think that was the biggest change for us, is being able to develop a community to really show people that we are here to be a part of their lives, not just a shop that you can come get cool clothes, but also a place that you can walk in. We know who you are. We know what you got last time. We, want to show you the new things that we think will fit your wardrobe or what you're looking for. And if you're looking to change it up, we kind of know where to point you. So I think that's one thing that we love about the physical space of the shop.
Oh, totally. Pretty well covered there. So what would you say is one of the most important lessons that you've learned? This could be painful or not painful, like either way, but like what has been like a really important takeaway that like from going, let's say fast forward 20 years, someone's like, oh my gosh, what's your main takeaway of going brick and mortar? Oh, you're ready on this one. What was one of your big like lessons that you learned?
His might be different, but I would say that being able to ask for help and like know your weaknesses. I think we learned that here from people speaking at startup. Even I think it was Sam from Theory who was like talking about delegation and like finding your weaknesses and finding the people that can fill those gaps. I think asking for help can be uncomfortable sometimes, and so just being able to reach out, get those connections. And I think one thing for us was like business advising. We don't have any background in business, so finding those people that could actually help us where we needed it, and being okay with that, I would say, is a huge thing.
Totally. Do you have any fun stories that have just come up from being in your spot, being in your storefront? Could be a customer interaction.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of.
I can ask Chris some more questions over here if you got to think about it.
I mean, in regards to what side? Like, give me a topic.
Yeah, well, I know one of the big hearts is to give kids a place to kind of like come hang out, a safe spot to be, that type of thing. Have you had any cool interactions there with any of the kids or the youth that like to hang out at your store? Yeah,
absolutely. I think one of the reasons why we got our shop is because there is like there's apartments behind it. There's like living quarters. There's places of people living in them all around, and we expected that to draw in people. It really didn't. I will say that. Which is not a bad thing. But the one thing it did draw in was kids. We had skateboarding kids that would skate by all the time, and a lot of times that can be a pain because you've got skaters on the sidewalk. And so I just remember there was these 3 kids, and they were just always skating in the parking lot or on the sidewalk. And one day they actually came in to the shop because, oh my gosh, there's a shop there. And they came in, and they were just excited, and we have video games in there. And one of the things we like to do at our shop is any kid that comes in, if their parents are trying to shop, we give the kids a quarter to go play the video games so the parents can shop. But also, when kids come in, we just offer a quarter so that, they can enjoy it and have a good time. So anyways, all that to be said, these kids got to play games. They started showing up every day. And instead of it being like a hassle, these kids, they would come in, they would come straight up to the counter and be like, can we get our quarters? Sometimes they brought their own, so I will say that. But then not only that, but they started bringing their mom in. Their mom came up to us and said, our kids look forward to coming home from school and coming down here now. And those are just the things that, for us, it means a lot. It means that we're actually benefiting the city. We're not just taking from the city. We're actually being a part of the city. And I think that's huge for us, is not to just be a business that's here to sell, but also a business that's here to work with the city and work with the community around us.
It's awesome.
I just say with that, our main demographic is high school age kids and early college age. We have other people as well, but that's our main genre of customers. So that high school age is really important. And I feel like we get so much feedback from parents that come in that are like, our high schoolers absolutely love it here. So we want it to be a safe place that they can trust us with their kids in that aspect as well. So, yeah.
And that actually leads in great for Peter here for my next question for you. So how does upcoming city development plans affect the decision-making process, or how should that affect the decision-making process for someone looking for an actual physical location? Are there any areas that should be focused on?
Well, there's certainly a buzz now.
Yeah.
We have a lot of really significant projects going. I think most people are familiar with the Cascade Village, which is the 49 units of housing and about 5,500 square feet of commercial that are coming in. And we're seeing properties getting purchased, having some more interest in filling in those empty spaces that haven't been filled in. But, it's just being aware of what types of projects are coming and how that might benefit you. I mean, we have one project that is looking to bring sewer to the entire west side of the town. 600 new units or 600 units are going to be on that sewer, and there's a lot of vacant commercial out there, and you can't really occupy it because you have problems with septic tanks and all of that. So maybe there's somebody that wants to bring kayak rental place out there, just right down the street from the Santa Moody boat launch, right?
Yeah.
So those are the types of things that you just be watching the city calendar or the city website for what types of bids are going out.
There's where would one look on the website for that? Is it just city bids?
So yeah, you can go to the Public Works website.
Okay.
The website's fairly easy to navigate. Go to the Public Works, sign up to be notified when there's bids that are put out. Sign up for the calendar for events. It just totally depends on what you're looking for. Obviously, we're getting a good buzz on Shasta Dam Boulevard now, and as you see this go forward over the next 18 months to 3 years, you're going to see a whole new streetscape, new lighting. The buildings will be built here probably within less than 18 months. The buildings will be up, and keep an eye out for those vacant buildings that look a little problematic, but, hey, maybe a remodel could get us there.
Totally.
Yeah, so, whatever you're looking for, I mean, just keep in mind the main strip there is going to be a mixed-use area. Out on the other side of town, we have a little bit of commercial, there's residential. But yeah, just be watching kind of the headlines on the website for things that might interest you.
Very cool. So then, Chris, let's say I find the perfect spot. Is there any, I've never negotiated a commercial license or a commercial loan, at least, good night, thank you. I haven't been in that situation clearly. And so are there any tips or tricks or anything when you're negotiating prices that say a business owner should bring up when they're looking at those leases? Or is that pretty nope, it's $100 a square foot and that's what it is?
No, actually, I think the fun part about it is that it can get very creative, which can also make things probably too complicated.
Sure.
But just know that there's oftentimes a way to figure out whatever might be the issue that's popping up, whether it's a physical issue with the space or some sort of funding issue with the business. Especially in, Shasta Lake has some amazing things happening for sure. And there's actually a couple of tenants that have offers in on Cascade Village. So there's going to be some really cool things coming there. They're going to be a big draw, which is going to be great just to even be right next to them as far as their overall traffic.
Totally.
But the biggest thing that I don't feel like everyone really pays enough attention to is just the fair market rent. What is the value of whatever it is? And it's funny, I think the national rhetoric and the various, TV shows only exacerbate the problem a little bit because, you'll see them going out and shopping for something, and their, real estate agent will say like, oh, we looked at this one, and this one, and this one's listed for this one's listed for this one's listed for this. Which one do you want to make an offer on, and what do you want to offer? And you kind of think like, wait, what? It should be the other way around.
Yeah.
You should be telling them like, this is the fair market value, or this is the fair market rent, and this is what other businesses have been paying for something similar, and the amount of free rent they've received, and the amount of tenant improvement allowance of money that the landlord is actually given to build out the space and your vision. And this is the amount of time that you can expect for that, and this is the amount of escalation. Your rent may be going up each year because that is a normal thing. And so rather than focusing on the list price, because that is just a random number that's made by someone, oftentimes the seller or owner, as you guys know, and may or may not have some data behind it supporting it. It's really important to say like, okay, find out what is it worth? What is it worth? Is it worth $1 a square foot? Is it worth $5 a square foot? And then let's figure out negotiating. And as long as you know that, and that comes with data. Just get as much data as you can. Find someone who knows. It doesn't have to be me. There's a lot of data out there, and that's the beauty of the internet. There's more and more data out there and readily available to everybody, and that's where it needs to go, honestly. So,
Can you tell us the most creative leasing agreement that you've seen?
oh my gosh.
Oh, you don't need to say who.
Oh
don't-
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
There's some fun little things that we can throw in there.
Yeah. There are so many ways to do different things. I mean, I've seen leases where there have been 3 years of free rent, just because the property owner didn't have the funds. They had a shell of a building, like let's say this is the shell here, and someone needed to put in bathrooms. They were doing assembly, which is a good reason to go and talk to Peter, because they were planning on having more than 49 people in the space, which required sprinklers. So they needed to bring in sprinklers. They needed to do all these different things. The landlord didn't have the money. Unfortunately, they were going through a divorce at the time. And so we looked at what would it take for the tenant to come in, which is very rare that the tenant comes in and has enough money to then invest in someone else's property. But
Right.
they had it in this case, and it ended up equating to 3 years of free rent. And so the landlord said, okay.
Wow.
So we did that. But we've done percentage rents, like you've said. There's a couple of percentage. We didn't have as many percentage leases in the Reading market or in the North State in general, but we've had so many recently. And it's really because the landlords are taking a risk. They're trying to make it work. It's not so much you hear about it and you think like, man, the landlord just wants a piece of my pie, right? Now their fingers in my pie too. They get 10% of whatever. But when you work backwards from what it costs to build this building brand new, and then what it costs to service the loan, to even get the financing to even build it, which, it's rare that someone has all the cash just to go and build it. It's the rent is so high that no one would ever sign up for that. So the landlord says, look, all right, I'm going to take a risk, but I think you're going to kill it here. So just pay me 10%, and let's both hope that you make $10 million this next year. I'm like, all right. If I make $10 million, I'm cool. I'm good with paying you 10%. So that's kind of the reality of what we're seeing now downtown, especially.
Okay.
So.
Nice. That's awesome. So let's see here. I was so into that one that I didn't look ahead. I'm sorry. So Well, let's see. Peter, let's ask you one more question, then we'll go to Q&A here. So are there any incentive programs at all with Shasta Lake that's going on? Or even like, I don't know if you know, like on the California sense, is there any things like kind of being trickled down federally to different cities, that there's any type of incentives to get people into brick and mortar at this moment?
So we have a recurring program, business improvement program, and it's $2,500 grant, $2,500 loan, and that's just for improvements to the facade, to your business, new windows, paint, awnings, anything like that. That's a pretty flexible program. And usually it, gets all taken up within the first, half a year or so,
Sure.
But it replenishes. As far as anything coming down from the state, I'm not aware of anything. We're seeing a lot of money coming from the state. I know that the budget just got cut on a few of our grants, but we're seeing a lot of investment in parks. We're seeing a lot of investment in infrastructure, a lot of fire risk reduction money.
Which you guys, let me just take a second. Shasta Lake, aren't you guys like the model now for the state on how like Whitney helped like do like the fire mitigation stuff? Like it's crazy how like Shasta Lake is setting the bar for fire mitigation. Like literally like the state came out to Shasta Lake to see how you guys were running your stuff. Like that's pretty amazing.
And that's a team of people working together. Whitney getting the grants, me doing the environmental, Greg out there monitoring the projects, and a whole team willing to say yes to these.
Right.
And our community is thankful for it.
Oh, totally.
When you get
I don't want it to burn down.
You get a fire break behind your house. It's like, hey, maybe that gives me another 15 minutes.
Totally.
And that matters.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
100%.
a pretty exciting part of what we're doing out there. And we've got, I think we're $2.5 million in at this point of fire clearing work.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's just an aside because I think that's pretty amazing what you guys are doing. So, So thank you guys so much for sharing your insight, and then we're going to just turn it over to these guys here, so you all get to ask them some questions now. What do you guys got? Here you go, Alex.
I have a question for Dylan and Paige. Did you guys notice a change? Because you said when you moved from online to in-person or brick and mortar, the genesis for that was 70% was coming from the Reading area. Did you notice a change in where your inventory was coming from as well? Was there a lot more of your vintage clothing coming from the community?
Yes. Do you want to speak on that?
You can go ahead, actually.
That's like your...
Okay, all right. Yeah.
He's the inventory man.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, I was just talking with Chris about this before, but what we'd do is we would travel and go and source outside and bring it back, which we still do. But the main thing for us is, like I said, my pitch before when we were all saying who we were, like, we are looking to buy. We're always buying. There's other people out there buying, but we always we've had a lot of feedback that we pay the most. So that has brought in a lot of people that are just constantly, I think every day we get,
We promote that we buy, sell, trade basically in our store. So anybody that's coming in, we're asking if they have clothes to sell, things like that. So that's bringing in more local inventory.
So yes, absolutely. We're getting 3, 4, 5 people a day that are bringing in boxes. We're getting calls. We run ads. We're doing everything we can. Now the downfall of that is there are other people out there, and so it gets a bad reputation. So sometimes people are expecting you to just lowball them, which we like to actually educate people on what they have, what it's worth, and then what we can pay. And people are really understanding of that. Obviously, we can't pay full price. In fact, we can't even pay close to it. But we're telling them this is what it's worth. If you feel like you can make more, go ahead and do that. But we're also willing to offer this. And a lot of people are accepting of that. So,
thank you.
One of my favorite pieces you guys had was a purple Carhartt jacket. It was so cool. I regret not getting it. But I'm not sure if I can pull off a Carhartt. There's that. But then you guys gave me the whole history about why it was purple and how that was just the female electricians at that time when that was being made, that they had the purple ones. So this is so cool. So did I see a hand over here?
Peter, question for you. So for City of Shasta, I'm down in Anderson, but City of Shasta Lake, so you talked about they have grants for small businesses, right? You're talking for improvements, was that right? Did I hear that right?
That's
okay.
Right.
Do they have, so this doesn't apply to me, but anybody else, do they have, I'm curious, do they have larger grants to start up a business to Shasta Lake? Have they done that?
We don't have anything like that right now. We just have the $2,500 grant, the $2,500 loan, a total of $5,000 for business owners that want to improve their properties. So nothing for, getting people off the ground.
Cool.
I think that's SBDC, right? Yeah. Yeah. There's people in the room that can help.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah.
Hi, my message is for Chris. This is the first I heard of a percentage lease. When I'm looking for a commercial property, it's usually the big ones like triple N or gross profit. Can you elaborate a little bit further how a percentage lease works in Reading?
Yes. So typically there is a minimum rent, right? So let's say it's just, again, let's use this as an example. You're going to pay $1,000 a month at a minimum, or 10% of your gross sales, typically. And the $1,000 is usually less than market. Let's say that if we looked at all the different leases that have been signed around here and it's right in the middle of town, so we'd say like that, this is probably worth $3,000 a month. But we'll do a percentage rent because we think that you and what you're doing is so great that it's just going to kill it. And 10% of what you're capable of is really $5,000. So we're going to bet on you. When I say we, it's the property owners. Sometimes we're the property owners. Most of the time we're not. We're working with our various clients. But they're saying they want at least the minimum rent, the $1,000, because they want you to be able to want to get up in the morning and go in, right? Because if it was zero, then maybe today that's too sunny and the lake's calling. So you have that, and then you have the 10%. Usually you're reconciling every month, and there is another version where you reconcile at the end of the year. But that's generally how that's set up. And majority of the leases in the public market, which I don't know if you guys how many people are familiar with the Reading public market? It is happening, just one block this way, which is going to be just like, I don't know if you've heard of the Oxbow Market in Napa, or Pike's Public Market in Seattle, or the Ferry Building downtown San Francisco. The gentleman who worked on a lot of those projects is also the consultant just one block away for 13 different vendors that are going to be in there, all doing different mostly food, also some various products. We've got produce, we've got ice cream, chocolate, bakery, coffee, beer, wine, cocktails. Of the 13, there's only one left. So it's all leased out. That one is actually a retail operator. So we're actively looking for a retail operator who can come in and essentially they're kind of looking more for something that might be on like the kitchen side. So kind of Williams-Sonoma-esque. Anyway, I didn't mean to hijack the question, but there you go. Also, the south side is almost completely full as well. I know it looks like there's a lot of vacant space, but new construction takes forever. And rightly so. It legitimately needs to, just to make sure everything is done right. But there's a lot going on. That building is almost completely full, so now we're focusing over here. So anyway, anything else? Cool.
Awesome. So I guess my question is a little bit more, instead of how to open your business in a physical space, but how to determine if you should. So I think it's great that you spoke to kind of that 70% was from Reading, but what else are you, and I don't really know who this is for, whoever feels like they have, something to say about it, but what else are you looking at to determine the ROI of that?
I can just share personally what we did. I think one thing is meeting with business advisors is always, laying it all out. It doesn't matter how ugly and how sloppy and how chaotic it looks, just laying it out and letting them kind of, give you advice. But yeah, I think for us, what we did is we looked at what our online sales were. We looked at what we needed for our own personal expenses all month. And then we took into consideration what the shop was going to cost per month. And we saw that we could make our, personal life expenses work and the shop just from our online. And so if we could make that, then we're like, look, if we make $100 in the shop, then that's $100 that, we can cover that. So, I think the big thing is in that mental, for us, I couldn't ever imagine how much you can make from a physical space over online. I heard from other people say once you go into a physical space, you're never going to look back. But once we got into that space, I was like, wow, it actually is true. You can, we're doing triple, quadruple, sometimes 10 times what we would do in a day online. So, that's just what we did.
One of the things I would just say is, when you start thinking about a new place, don't fall in love with it. Really ask the hard questions. I have people come into the counter and they're just like, man, we're going to do this thing and it's going to be great. And I'm like, you just talked about, $50,000 worth of improvements. And you're not going to get it done for this construction season because it's going to rain the next 3 months. And it's like, just ask the hard questions, like walk up to the building and go, what does this need? Does it need an $80,000 roof? Just be hard on yourself up front and really look at it, take the rose-colored glasses off, and then, do the pro forma to see, hey, can we make this work?
Have you seen the movie, I think it's Internship, where they go and they have an internship at Google?
I haven't.
You should watch it. It's like, how old is it? Maybe 5 or 6 years or something like that. So it's, now we're in AI, but they actually go and they get into the, Google data, and they find out that all of the customers going into this pizza store actually have a zip code of X, so they should actually put a pizza, store there, and it's not going to cannibalize their other stores, and they're just going to increase their overall profits, right? So there's so much data out there. That was so long ago, and now it's getting even better when we all get on our cell phones and we all don't pay attention to the terms and conditions and we just agree to whatever app we're using. It's allowing them to follow us around in a non-conspiratorial way. I totally knowingly do it because I don't care. But as a whole, we all are being put together. You can't follow just one individual person, but that data is readily available. We use it on a fairly regular basis. It's super cool. I can put a geofence around this building. I can tell you how many people come on a regular basis, how often they are here, where they went before, where they're going after, as a whole, as a large group of people, not you individually. And it will tell me what day of the week is the busiest day. And it will go into actually creating like a heat map where it actually shows where all of your different customers are coming from. So are you familiar with this?
Yeah, what kind of software are you using specifically?
So this one is the Placer AI.
Okay, yeah.
Are you familiar? Yeah. See, yeah. Okay. So I mean, that kind of information is hugely helpful, I think, when you're determining where your current customers are coming from, and whether you would get more or really kind of almost describing and figuring out who are your customers, and will there be enough when I open my store, and I think that's key, obviously, to decide and go brick.
Thanks, guys.
So how important is it to use a professional commercial realtor when you're doing commercial real estate? You and I have done a bunch of deals together. I'm a realtor too, but really we're more residential. But I would say that working with Chris, he really knows this town, and I wouldn't ever try to do it with a residential person that they specialize just in that, just because it can be very complex. One of the other things that I want to make a note for people that are kind of new to this is having a great budget and then adding a lot to it, because it's going to take a lot more time than you ever think. Don't be rude to the people down at the city or the county. They're human beings too, and they're just following rules. And, just really lean into quality information, because it'll save your bacon. One of the things, if you're new to leasing, you can do rolling options. You don't have to commit forever. Depends if the lessor will go along with it. But a lot of times I've seen businesses go in and they'll get a 2-year lease and they'll have rolling options to stay in that building. And so that's just a piece of advice. Or what do you think of that, Chris?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, and I think there's a number of competent people here that are doing great things. So by no means is that, suggestive of like, you got to use me. And I appreciate, you weren't just planted in the audience. I think the key, but I'll give you my speaking schedule so you come to the next one. I think the key really is understanding what is the fair market terms, right? What should I be paying? And that's the biggest thing that I see when people come in. I would say majority of the time I'm telling people, go get someone who you trust, who you feel comfortable with. But the key is who has that data, right? Who can help you understand that, okay, this is fair. This is what they did down the street, and therefore I'm not being taken advantage of. Because it's hard to know. It is so unique, all these different terms and everything that happens. It's fun for that reason. But.
So anyone can answer this question. In leasing a space and making it your own, a lot of times you have to make modifications to the space. What are some ways that you can navigate that with the property owner or the leasing companies? And what are some things that are maybe better for asking for forgiveness at the end of your lease versus for asking for permission?
I'm gonna let you guys. No, so just an FYI, if it's commercial, you need engineered stamp plans if you're going to do any work on the building. So just keep that in mind. You never want to get caught doing work after because it's way more expensive. And we run into that all the time. Somebody gets out in front of their toes, and we get out there and okay, well, you're going to tear off all the sheetrock because you did electrical work, you did plumbing work, and you didn't take any pictures. So start early, get them out there, get them on board. You just to be fully transparent. There's really, especially in commercial, there's no benefit to try to shortcut, and then because there's also liability in that.
Did you guys have a story about that? I'm just looking at the faces here.
We did a lot of improvements on our building.
Yeah, for real.
This is being recorded. You don't need to answer that question. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think, coming into it, you never really know quite fully what to expect. And even for us, we have an amazing landlord, and we went through it with him where there was clear, talk back and forth. And we were running into issues as we were going that he didn't know about, we didn't know about. And then it was like, how do we deal with this? We've already signed a lease. We've already come to an agreement. Like one of them, for instance, was the floor. So we had, and I'll share this with you, we had like an allowance for the floor. It was very minimal. But for us, it was like, we're just going to throw a layer of paint on the floor and just call it good. Well, I had 3 or 4 of, friends that are contractors that came through, and they're like, dude, you can't throw paint on this floor because it will chip up in a matter of a month. And so then I'm calling the landlord after we've signed a lease and being like, this floor is a lot more work than we thought. And he was like, well, how much more work? So then we go get a quote, and the quote was like $20,000 to $40,000 worth more work. Well, that's more than what we've put into this. So now it's like, now we're in a negotiation or like a discussion. And I will say not everybody gets the, I don't know. Our landlord's he's a great guy. He was open to talk about that. We came to a resolution, and it got figured out.
That might not always be the case.
Yeah, it might not always be the case. So I will say that like there's always going to be road bumps. I won't say all of our road bumps, but we came through them and it figured out, and we love our shop. It's
But it all
amazing.
came through clear communication with our landlords and going back and forth with our contractor, their contractor, all the things, and just being honest and figuring it out.
Yep.
We have time for one more question. Anybody have any burning questions that they need to ask? Going once, going twice. Well, phenomenal. Thank you guys so much, truly, for your expertise in all of this.